All right, Bears fans, Jason McKie joins Lance Briggs and Jerry Azumah. Got a lot to talk about. Training camp is almost here. Let's go. CHGO Bears After Dark starting right now. Welcome back to CHGO Bears After Dark, presented by Circa Sports and Empire Today. We appreciate those guys, as always, for their continual support of this fine program. I am your host, Greg Briggs Jr., and alongside me, as always, is Lance Briggs, who we affectionately call El Boogie, and Jerry Azumah, the Zoom man. Let's go. But joining us today is special guest and former teammate here, bringing it in from the Chicago Bears. Fullback, always leading the way here in the T formation for the Chicago Bears. That's Jason McKie of ESPN 1000. Thank you for joining us, Jason.
No, thanks to be on, especially with my guys, Briggy and Zoom. It's like being in the locker room again. So anytime I have an opportunity to hang out with my boys, go back and talk some ball, I'm there. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, well, you guys are I'm going to step aside to the back because, I know a lot of fans watching. They don't need my stupid face on this program here today. So I'm going to get out the way, let you guys catch up, and I'll jump in here and there because I'm sure I'll have some questions at some point, but appreciate you joining us as always.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. J-Mac, what's up, brother?
What's up, man? What's up?
Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. My first question for you is how are the Corsairs? How are the Corsairs looking this year?
We're working, man. It's always, every day is a challenge, especially working with young athletes, trying to continually build a culture every day, uphold it as a coaching staff. They're all kind of challenges. Kids are on vacation in the summertime. You're trying to get parents to buy in. You're trying to get players to buy in. The season is upon us, but it's fun. It's definitely fun with the group of kids that I have, the coaching staff that I've been able to put together and that I've had for a while. And the success we've had in the past, we weren't as good as we have been last year. So we're trying to, that fire's been reignited, and we're back to work, back to the grind, and trying to maintain a competitive edge and put a productive product on the field.
Yeah, you talked about the kids, and sometimes it can be tough, but you've created an incredible program up there. Consistency has been like your key. How do you maintain that consistency moving forward?
Yeah, it's similar to, you guys have obviously played at the elite level. You guys have been Pro Bowlers. Briggs, a future Hall of Famer. Zoom, you a Hall of Famer in the city, my guy right there, boy. So you guys, it's just being attentive to the details every single day. The main thing is just upholding your standard, and the coaches have to be able to make sure that everybody's, maintaining a high level of expectation. And that's what everything we do. So everything we do has got to be at a high level. That's whether we're lifting, that's whether we're meeting, watching film, obviously out there at practice, working on our fundamentals daily, going out there in our team peers, executing plays. We want to be as perfect as we can be, but we also want to make practice as hard as we can make it and as close to a game type tempo or environment that we can. So that way Friday nights is fun. And, a lot of these kids, they you're around them all the time, but you don't see what goes on at home. So there's a lot of things that come into play that you have to account for. We're always checking the well-being of our kids mentally, obviously physically with football as well. But it's a lot. It's a lot for a high school coach because you have an opportunity to mold these young kids into men. Right. They're like clay. And you got to realize as a high school coach, the things that you say and the things that you do can affect them for the rest of their lives. And I think, our staff and our community has done a great job of creating an environment that really sets our kids up for success. And we've had a lot of kids go on to college to play football. We've had a lot of kids that go on to college in general just because they're good students, high character young men, and have a high level of academics. So it's been really good. It's been fun.
You played with a few coaches, a few different head coaches during your NFL career. Mm-hmm. Who would you say you're most like, and your offensive guy? Who would you say you're most like as a head coach? I'm going to put Lovie's name out there, but I'm sure that might not be the top of the list.
Man. Yeah, the funny thing is playing for a lot of head coaches, I find myself taking bits and pieces from all of them, and then using a lot of the things that they did that I liked and that I saw was successful, but also taking things that I do as a coach and putting my own twist and spin on it. So a lot of times I'll say things, I'm like, man, I sound like Coach Smith. Or, I'll say things, and my first coach that I ever had was Andy Reid, or I'll be like, man, I remember Coach Reid did, he ran this play or utilized this formation a lot, and I liked it. So, I'll find myself resorting back to some things I learned from Andy Reid. And then my last year being in Baltimore with Coach John Harbaugh, who was in Philly with Andy Reid my rookie year, who I've known pretty much my whole life, I find myself doing a lot of things that he did as well. So yeah, it's a mixture of a lot of good coaches that I've been around, that I've had an opportunity to play under and learn from, and that really helped me, in my coaching career, because as players, we know what success looks like when you have a great staff that understands how to win, they understand what it takes to win, and they hold their organization to that standard and their players to that standard and that level on a daily basis. Well, as a high school coach, I have an opportunity. We as players, we got to live that. So I get to take those things and apply it to my program. Mm-hmm. So we know when things are right, and we know when things are going bad or when things are wrong.
Right. And what have been some of your biggest challenges, as a head coach? I mean, as a head coach, you're responsible for everything. You're responsible for, all the moving parts that happen. But obviously things don't go smooth, as we know. And there's always challenges that arise. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to come over?
Man, my first year was a whirlwind. You think as a coach, you're just going to come in and implement, a scheme offensively, defensively, and special teams. And that's what I thought I was going to do. So, my playbooks was right. I had what I wanted to do in terms of offense, defense, and special teams. But hey, they're like, hey, coach, did you send the helmet and shoulder pads in for reconditioning? I'm like, what? Huh?
Yeah, you're responsible for that.
Reconditioning? What are you talking about? We just don't get helmets and shoulder pads. Coach, did you order the decals for the helmets? No, I didn't do none of that. So
the first year was tough.
Oh man, that equipment room, my first year was trash, man. It was terrible. Like,
it sounds like you learned a lot, though.
I learned. Man, you got to be in Briggs. No, Briggs. You coach high school ball too, man. It's when you get an opportunity to coach football and talk about the X's and O's, it's a relief from all the other things that you have to do. Like I said, you're the equipment manager. You're putting together the workout plan. You're a coach, you're a big brother, you're a father. Yeah. You got to deal with parents. I'm like, oh, coach, did you email the parents? No, I didn't email the parents either. Right. You got to do all of those things. And then now go ahead, Briggs.
You know how many, bro, you know how many times that players come up to me and told me something, and see, as the assistant coach, I get to be able to deflect here. Whereas, like, coach, I think I hurt my shoulder. I'm looking at him. I'm like, well, I'm just a football coach. You gotta go see the trainer. You know what I mean? Like, hey, coach, coach, something's going on here. I'm just a football coach. Coach, you know what time we're supposed to? I'm just a football coach, man. You're gonna have to go ask the head coach.
Yes, you get everything. Yeah. I mean, putting the schedule together, obviously, organizing the coaches' meetings. Like, I mean, you got to ordering the apparel, like everything. Yeah. You got to order everything. Like, coach, did you guys get your game polos this year? No. How long they take to come in? We play next week. Like, You know, it was it was a whirlwind. But you know, when you live and learn, you learn and you adapt, and then you know you add that to your list of responsibilities, and you get a firm understanding of what encompasses of being a high school head coach. And so those are some of the hurdles that I faced my first year, and there's always something, like Briggs said, there's always something new. As a head coach, you're always going to forget something, but you got to have a great staff. And I have a really, really good, enthusiastic, energized staff that really helps me with a lot of things. Mm-hmm. We've got a bunch of good managers as well that handle a lot of things. So we work as a unit. And then, like I said, I got a great group of kids that are high character young men that just happen to be good at football. So, we're definitely blessed. It has been fun.
Well, speaking of the staff, obviously Adam Hoge works here at CHGO Bears, so I need a scouting report on the kind of coach he's been, and is he living up to standard? Is he the tough coach? So we need a little dirt on Hoge.
Now, Hoge's been awesome, man. He helps with our special teams. He does a really good job of watching film and putting together game plans and special team schemes that we'll implement on Friday. And the good thing about Hoge is, like, if he doesn't know, he'll ask. He always asks, certain things, or how we did things when we were here in Chicago, having a great special teams unit like we did under Dave Tobe. And then, he has a good relationship with Coach Hightower at the Bears. I have a good relationship with Coach Hightower at the Bears. He's been to our game. So, those are resources that I think our program has that a lot of these high school teams don't have, because if there's something that we don't know, or if there's something that we want to implement, then we have the resources. So Hoge's been awesome. He hasn't been around. He's been on vacation, and he posted all the time. We're out there sweating. He's on vacation, so I'm going to get on him. He's going to have to do some Corsair corrections. That's our punishment that we do after practice for missing and things of that. So he's going to have to do some of those when he comes back.
Yes, absolutely.
I've been trying, J-Mac. I've been trying to get a game with you guys. I've been bothering our head coach. Illinois is just a little bit outside the budget, buddy. It's far.
Hey, I'm telling you,
far.
Hey, I'm at a Catholic school, so that budget, they call it a budget. There ain't nothing there. I'm like, man, we got a budget, man. There ain't nothing there. Ain't nothing there.
Hey, Jay, I have a question for you. I know that everybody has expectations. Obviously, the coaches have expectations. The players have expectations. You guys have expectations to go out there and win a state championship. Mm-hmm. But also the parents. Talk about that. Like, I know that they have their set of expectations too, and sometimes that can be challenging. Briggs, you have that face on your you have that face on your face, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Talk to the people about the parents and their expectations and how you try to control that.
Well, Briggs knows, and I'm gonna try to be PC. I'm gonna try to be PC here, but I'm not. It's not gonna come out that way. At the end of the day, I don't care.
We're gonna get it out of you.
Yeah, I don't care. We on CHGO After Dark, so I'm gonna go in and do it in the back. I don't care. We're gonna
there you go.
It's man, we have a lot of good parents, a lot of supportive parents. Team moms, and they get really involved in terms of organizing pregame meals, making sure we have snacks before the game. They'll even come in and bring snacks before morning practice. They do a really good job. Help me, make sure that the team store is up and running to order, apparel for the parents and stuff like that. Like, they do a great job. But, then there's the other set of parents who, one, think their son should be a quarterback, but your son can't throw the ball more than 5 yards.
Yes,
your son can't throw the ball further than coach. Like, he ain't no quarterback, and coach can't throw it all. And you get all the parents expect their kids to go D1. They expect their kid to go play at Notre Dame or Michigan, and they expect their son to be the center at Michigan, but your son's like 5'8", 160 pounds. Like, he's not even gonna play center here. I'm just trying to help you guys out. So it's tough because they don't know what they don't know. And us, and as a staff, and having some of the people I have on staff that has had the opportunity to play at every level, we try to give them the blueprint or the best advice or the best roadmap that we can give them for their particular kid to be successful. And some want to listen, some don't. But at the end of the day, it's not my job to make them listen. It's my job to make sure that our football team is prepared and ready to compete. And like you said, Zoom, like, our ultimate goal is winning a state championship. So when it comes to recruiting, us as head coaches and coaches, we're not required to do any recruiting. Like, we don't have to go out there and push our kids, but the great coaches, the good coaches that want to have a successful program,
right,
you go out there and you do the extra. Like, I meet with these college coaches all the time. You know, we've had a ton of head coaches come through our school. We've had pretty much almost every school in the country come through our school because we have good players. And, you know, the players that fit the criteria that they're looking for, obviously we push our kids that way, and make sure that our kids are being, you know, highlighted in that way, so that way they can have that opportunity if it comes their way.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Man, when I first moved up to to coach varsity, you know, that I saw this group, our group of linebackers, and one of the linebackers was already probably 6'2", 220, you know, and he was coming off his sophomore year, and I'm looking at the kid. I'm like, shoot, it was like sophomore year. I was like a $175, you know.
All right.
And I'm like, this guy's already like, and I told the coach that, I'm like, listen, I think that he should start working this kid at D line. You know, he ended up being a stud as a linebacker, but he wasn't an all-down linebacker. And I want guys that want to stay on the field all the time. But when we get in any pass situations, he has to come off the field. You know, and so it's actually, unfortunately, he gets up getting hurt the first series of the season. And at the end of that year, the kid that stepped in for him ended up being the breakout player of the year. The other linebacker was the defensive player of the year. So it was one of those deals where it's not looking good for you at the linebacker position. He's transitioned over, and I'm telling you, like, he's destroying kids on the defensive line right now. You know, in 1 year, he hasn't even played this last year, but he's already getting offers just off of going to these different camps, showing out, running, you know, a 4.5, and then just manhandling guys. So, you know, it's one of those deals where I'm really happy that he's doing what he's doing, but I knew what the hell I was talking about in the very beginning, you know?
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Politically wise, it's all,
yeah, that was gonna say you might want to listen to a perennial Pro Bowler, all Pro, future Hall of Famer.
You might have to listen to Lance Briggs.
You might want to listen to Lance Briggs just a little bit. I mean, I don't know.
Just a little.
Right. That's very interesting what you said about the parents. You know what I'm saying? Because I know the parents, sometimes their heads can be in the cloud, and then they're seeing like all the NIL money and seeing the scholarships and things like that. And you know, I have a 7-year-old and a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. So like I'm starting to get into it, but now it's into like club sports. And club sports, like I'm traveling to Indiana. I was just in Indiana for, you know, July 4th weekend, you know, playing my 9-year-old son was playing out there in the tournament. And then before that, we were in Michigan for my 7-year-old that plays soccer. So all these club sports, man, it just seems like it's all about the parents that are really trying to push their kids to be the greatest 8, 9, 10-year-old. And I kind of feel like that's not really the focus. Like the focus should be like, just have these kids have fun at a certain age. And then once they get to like, you know, 14, 15, and then high school, push them to win a state championship, because that's what they're guaranteed. They're not guaranteed to play outside of high school football. They're not guaranteed to get a scholarship. They're not guaranteed to play anywhere else, but they are pretty much guaranteed to play, you know, in high school. So their goal should be to be the best high school athlete that they can be.
Yeah, I'm not a problem.
You know what? Go ahead.
I'm not a problem as a helicopter parent. My daughter's 7. She's in karate, and I'm just hoping she gets through the whole session paying attention. She's in soccer practice, sprinkling grass on the soccer ball. I'm like, I'm walking away before I say anything. So she's got the attention span of her dad. So, yeah, no, that's good advice there, Jerry. I hate to cut in, but I just wanted to take a quick time out, take a commercial break, let these guys get back to it. Obviously, we're going to talk more about, you know, the current Chicago Bears. Jason's been out covering the team for ESPN 1000, you know, with Pat the designer as well. You guys are doing a great job over there with everything you guys are doing. And obviously, you're doing a lot of sideline work during the season as well. So excited to hear your insights on what you've seen from the new era Chicago Bears, especially with Ben Johnson and this coaching staff. So we're going to take a quick time out and come back to all that. But first, want to give a shout out to Empire today. Just like your favorite team needs a home field advantage, your team needs a home floor advantage, and Empire today can help you get it. Empire today has flooring experts dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to those big box stores. You wander endlessly around the aisles, and somehow you're hauling all these materials home yourself. You're doing it all yourself, installing, coordinating everything. Well, Empire Today does those things for you, and they are your best bet for a new floor because they understand flooring. They live and breathe it, as opposed to the big box stores who might have a bricklayer working on the shift, and they don't know what they're talking about, so we know that to be true. Get precise measurements taken and have all your questions answered so there are no surprises. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. CHGO listeners can receive a $350 discount when using the promo code CHGO. Yes, you heard that right, a $350 discount with code CHGO. Restrictions apply. Visit Empire today for full details. And of course, got to give a shout out to our friends over at Circa Sports. Circa Sports, it's the app to bet, and whatever the sport, Circa Sports is betting the way it should be. Circa Sports Illinois has high betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service. Bet on all your favorite teams in every game this season. Spreads, props, futures, or in-game, Circa Sports has it. Fun and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. And you got to make sure you're betting on our Chicago Cubs, first place in the division. Get into the second half of the season. You can make yourself a lot of money betting on the Cubs. So download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Shout out Circa Sportsbook. That's right. Shout out Circa Sportsbook. And shout out these three fine gentlemen, former Chicago Bears. The glory days as for me as a fan. So it's a real thrill to hear you guys shooting it up and talking ball here. And so make sure you're hitting that like button while you're hanging out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as always. And we're going to be doing a lot of great coverage here at CHGO Bears throughout the football season. And that's essentially kind of where I wanted to have you guys take this next. And Jason, you know, you were able to be there for OTAs and minicamp. I know Jerry was also there, got to see these guys in person. And I know Briggs is excited to see these guys get into some work here, especially when preseason gets started not too far away. So that's basically where I want to take this is your first impressions on everything you're seeing from this coaching staff and this team and the new mentality they're taking after a tough year last year.
Yeah, I see, with the staff that Coach Johnson has put in place. You know, you look at the staff in general and as a whole, a bunch of high-level individuals with a lot of experience that can help them really, implement a standard and hold these guys to a high level of accountability. Something we didn't see last year consistently, or the last few years. You saw guys doing things on the field, that really cost them some games. Practice wasn't, in my opinion, going to practice the last few years, it wasn't a highly detailed practice. There was a lot of things that weren't said, or a lot of things that were kind of swept under the rug. And it really came back to bite you in games. And you had, a lot of dysfunction. We know about some of the calls that were made by the coaches. In-game decisions were questionable, which really determined the outcome of the season. But what I see with this staff is you have a highly detailed and oriented new head coach that knows exactly what he wants. And when you listen to all the players, when they come out during their press conferences, the one thing that I've heard from each and every one that takes the podium is clear, concise communication and overemphasizing details. And, as players, and we know Zoom and Briggs, it's great to know exactly what your role is and what the expectation is of you in terms of your position. So now I can go out there and I can be like, okay, I know what my role is. I know what my job is. You know what I mean? And I can go out here and really execute that, but work to live up to that role each and every day. And the same thing for coaches. When your staff knows exactly what you're looking for from your team, they can go out there and help you achieve that. So that's one thing that I've seen. I've seen a practice that's been, it's been up tempo. When things aren't right, people are speaking up in terms of the coaches. I've seen Coach Johnson reset that offensive huddle a bunch of times because the tempo wasn't there. I've seen guys get cussed out on defense because they're not running to the ball. I've seen Coach Kennedy. Yeah, I love it. I've seen Coach Bieniemy. Me being a former back, I go over there with the running backs a lot, and I get an opportunity to be right there in their drill. So I've seen Coach Bieniemy cuss out guys if they're not, if they don't have the right footwork or aiming point, if they're not holding the ball properly, if they're not finishing a drill. And those are the things that you need, like we talked about when we started the show. Those are the details that have to be overemphasized each and every day if you want to have a chance, or if you want to have an opportunity to maintain a competitive edge against your opponents. In years past, I've been in practice Zoom and Briggs, and I've seen, receivers drop the football in practice and nobody says anything. They jog back to the huddle, the ball's still right there on the ground. Nobody says nothing.
Crazy.
Back in the day, that wouldn't have happened when we were there. Like,
it's a problem.
The players, we would have said something, on the field in meetings, but the coaches are going to say something as well. They're going to be like, catch the goddamn ball. You know what I mean? Like, that's the standard. So you see a corner turn in that way, but I really like the staff that he's put together. And I think from what I've seen, like, it's only been OTAs and minicamp.
Right.
I see the players, they're buying in and they're accepting the high level coaching. And let's see how that progresses through our training camp.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you say that, because when in the high school level, you hear a lot of coaches say, well, they're too old. They're too old. You don't coach effort. You don't need to coach effort, but if you coach effort, if you're coaching effort at the highest level, there's no excuse for you to be at any level and say that you're not coaching effort. You're always coaching effort on every play.
Right. And Jay, you talked about this coaching staff. I actually think it's really important, the fact that he brought some coaches that have actually played the game in the NFL level. Like, talk to people about that. Like, it's really important to me that, like, you get around people that have, the same feel that you have. And there's only people that can feel that. And it's the people that have actually played, that have put their body on the line, that have been in those huddles, that have been through those practices. They can fully understand you as a player. Talk to the folks a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think when you look at the staff, like we're talking about, you look at, I'll start with Eric Bieniemy. I think that was one of my favorite hires, just because you have a guy who's obviously played the game at a high level. He's been successful as a player at every level. Even back when he was at the University of Colorado, he was a dog as a running back. Went on to play in the league. He's been around, Hall of Fame coaches and Andy Reid. He's been an offensive coordinator. Yeah, Super Bowl. He knows what success looks like. He has the rings to back it up. So I think, having that resource as a first-time head coach is invaluable. Also, I go to the other side of the ball. You look at Dennis Allen, who's been a head coach in this league, who's been a well-respected defensive coordinator as well. Another coach that you can lean on as a first-time head coach. You can lean on somebody that's been a head coach that can give you the insights of, okay, as a head coach, I was unsuccessful here, but these are some of the things I did that I was successful at, in terms of just the little things, the schedule, just the way you're running things and all of those things. He has a resource to lean on, and then you can go all the way down to Al Harris, Antoine Randall, guys who have played this game at an elite level. That's actually position coaches. Like, if I'm a receiver, I get an opportunity to learn from Antoine Randall, and not saying that, Antoine Randall is going to be a Hall of Famer, but he was an absolute dog at receiver. He's in the league. He's been on successful teams, and I get the opportunity to learn from him. But now I respect what he's teaching more, in his opinion, because he's wore cleats. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of people.
Credibility. Got real credibility.
Yes,
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people, and this isn't a shot at anybody. This is the truth, and the truth hurts a lot. There's a lot of people talking about football, right? And coaching football that has never bowled a mouthpiece. Let's keep it real. Like, they don't know. You don't know football. You know what I mean? So like Al Harris, and Al Harris is a guy who I've known since my rookie year, since my days in Philly. Somebody that I looked up to. His younger brother played with me at Temple, so he's been like a big brother to me for a long time. A guy who's been an absolute dog as a corner in the league, who's done it at the highest level. So with the young secondary that we have, if Al Harris is talking, I'm listening and I'm writing things down, because he's done it and he knows what he's talking about, and he's been successful as a head coach. And all those coaches that I mentioned, they're all guys that aren't going to put it with no BS. They're going to hold guys accountable. They're going to make sure guys are,
Yeah, but nowadays you don't really need to have experience if you have AI. You know what I mean? You can have AI and now you're good now,
Stop it,
right?
Lance. Don't put that out there.
Yeah,
I'm putting that out there.
yeah. Tell me how we can get more sacks. ChatGPT, how can we stop Caleb Williams from getting sacked 16 times last year? Yeah. I'll wait.
Stop it, Lance. Don't do that. Man, I mean, this is a brand new team, brand new pretty much coaching staff as well. I mean, there's going to be competition all over the place. What are you looking forward to in a training camp in terms of competition?
Yeah, man, I just want to see guys going out there competing. I want to see, I just from what I've seen, and I know the way things are ran with the new, the new rules and stuff like that. There's a limit on how often you can be in pads and stuff like that. But I just feel like what I saw the last few years in training camp, it wasn't like it just wasn't a true training camp. I didn't see enough. The guys weren't in pads. The guys went like 7 days without pads. They were just in helmets. You know what I mean?
How are you supposed to get ready for an NFL football season if you're not putting on pads?
That's what I'm saying. I just don't understand that. And then with the limited amount of playing time that guys are going to get in the preseason, I just don't understand how you're going to be ready for an NFL season. So I would like to see how he's going to run training camp to try to create an atmosphere of competition, to get creative in terms of making sure that our guys are getting enough work to make sure that guys' bodies are getting calloused for a long NFL season. Yeah. I want to see how he's going to put that practice plan together. I want to see, is the level of accountability going to continue to rise and be upheld? I think that's real important. And not just from the coaching staff, but we know, guys, the main thing is, right, the head coach sets the table in terms of what he expects. The players create the culture and uphold the standard. So I want to see who's going to step up as leaders. Who's going to, when things are going
very
bad,
important.
And when practice is not good, who's going to step up and say something? Who's going to be the leaders and who's going to really, take that level of accountability and uphold this culture on a daily basis, because we know the players set the standard in the culture. And if they're not doing that, then it's going to be a long season again if the players aren't doing that.
Yeah. And we're in an era now where it's a lot, it's fewer and far in between, these leaders, these role players, these guys that step in that we obviously, hey, this guy is definitely the leader of that team. Or, hey, the heart and soul of this team is this guy right here. It's like it's been spread across. Everybody gets that participation award to step in and say, hey, listen, I'm the leader today, and it doesn't work like that.
Right. I mean, if you look at this team, I mean, they've been up and down and left and right, in the past 2 years. And, obviously they're trying to put some things together, but they have some weaknesses. And I think that they've addressed those weaknesses in free agency, especially with the offensive line. Talk to the people a little bit about the offensive line and how they rebuilt that and almost like what their plans are in terms of like running the ball, because I know Ben Johnson loves to run the ball. I know that he likes to have 2 tight ends in there that can actually block as well and get a hat on a hat. So I think it's going to be really important for the Chicago Bears to establish a run, often. And I think that that's something that Ben is going to implement right away. But like I said, they've rebuilt their weaknesses with the trenches. How important is all those things, moving forward in the season?
Yeah, I mean, you guys know the trenches on both sides of the ball is the heartbeat of the team. An offense doesn't function without an adequate offensive line. And then the same thing, Briggs knows if you don't have a good defensive line, well, that defense isn't going to function. Right. And I think when you look at what they've done in terms of rebuilding the line in free agency and via the draft, you bring in a 2nd round pick in Ozzie Trapilo, you bring in Joe Tooney, you bring in Drew Dahlman at center, you bring in Jonah Jackson, guys who have had experience, guys who have played at a high level in the NFL. But I think, when you look at those guys as a whole, you look at guys that can be real good in the locker room, but can be good leaders. And you're going to need that with the offensive line because, like I said, you bring in a guy with Joe Tooney who's got multiple Super Bowl rings, 2 different organizations from his time with the Patriots and then Kansas City, a guy who knows what success looks like. But is he going to be that vocal leader in that offensive line room, right, when things aren't going good? not only in that offensive line room, but he's going to be that vocal leader on offense when things aren't functioning right. So I think those are some of the key things that remains to be seen. You know, on paper, we've gotten better in terms of the offensive line, but they still got to go out there.
On paper, we win the Super Bowl.
On paper.
Right.
On paper, we win the Super Bowl every year.
On paper, don't mean nothing. It don't mean nothing if you ain't out there on the grass and you know, on game day actually, you know, producing and being productive. So I think they've done a good job of addressing needs. But we'll see how that matriculates. I think when you look at Ben Johnson in terms of what he's done in Detroit, and he says like this whole offensive scheme is going to be stripped down to the bare studs and rebuilt. I think it's awesome when I hear a coach talk about that, because so many times we see coaches, right? They only know one scheme. They only know one way of doing things. And they try to come in and force that scheme. They try to force that scheme and implement it. And you don't have like Briggs said, you don't have the personnel to fit that scheme. But when you have a guy who created his own scheme and understands how to you know, manipulate that scheme or change it to fit the personnel that he has, that's a true offensive coordinator. So I think when you talk about the running game, I think, you know, Ben Johnson's been a guy we've seen likes to run outside zone a lot. I think, you know, you got to have the linemen that are going to have to be able to run. They're going to have to get on edges. You're going to have to get lateral displacement, in which you're trying to get on outside zone. I think you have, you know, I think DeAndre Swift is a back that's more adept at running outside zone. But we know Ben Johnson will do a lot of creative things in terms of formations and shifts and things like that to gain a numbers advantage on either side of the ball in terms of the run game. So I'm excited to see what this offense is going to look like. You know, and the main thing is, you know, you talk about Caleb, new offense again.
Yes. Again.
Second year. You know, new way of doing things fundamentally. You know, his footwork may change. Obviously, the route concepts is going to change. A lot of stuff may be the same, but guess what? The terminology is going to be different. So he's going to have to call things you know, a different way than what he may be used to. But the one thing, like I said about Ben Johnson is, hey, he's going to make sure that he devises a scheme that fits the talent of his players, so that way they can get the best productivity. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Now you spent time with Caleb, obviously, throughout that first season. Talk to him as like a person, and then talk to him how you think he will adapt to this brand new offense.
Yeah, Caleb's an awesome person, man. I truly built a bond with him. You know, he's completely the opposite of what I thought he would be like coming out of USC. And
Interesting.
You know, he's a DC kid, right? But you know, when you go out there on Briggs side of the world, out there in the West Coast, you know what I'm saying? Things are a little bit different.
Gotta be showtime, baby. Showtime.
So I thought he was gonna be, you know, I mean, hell, he was getting paid NIL. He was already rich before he got drafted, you know. You know, living in a penthouse overlooking downtown LA. You know what I mean? I thought he was gonna be a little Hollywood, but man, he's complete opposite. Completely down to earth. And when you look at it, like, he took a lot of the blame on himself. You know, a lot of times when you know, things wasn't necessarily his fault, he's like, no, it's on me. I've got to play better. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you want from a franchise quarterback. He's able to accept the criticism when things aren't going in the right direction. He's able to accept criticism and put it on his shoulders. And obviously, as a franchise quarterback, when you are doing things, well, you're going to get the praise, but you got to be able to sit at the podium and accept the criticism for the entire team when it's going bad. And he's done that every time. You know, I'm this first interview after the game, and not one time he's shown signs of frustration, and we've seen that him on the sideline. But it's because he's a competitor. Like, he wants to win, and he doesn't want to just win for himself. It's not about him going out there and throwing for 3 touchdowns and over 300 yards. He wants to win. Dude is extremely competitive. And
do you feel like he'll probably try to do too much? I mean, let's be realistic. This team lost 10 in a row. Okay, that's a lot of L's in a row. So
it's a lot of chapters in a book.
Do you think that, you know, he's the type of person where he'll try to, obviously he wants to put himself in good positions to succeed, but do you think that he might try a little bit too much or try a little too hard because of all the L's that we saw? And I'm not putting all the L's on him, but just as a team.
Yeah, it took a lot of L's. But
a lot. That was a lot.
Man, bro. And the way they took the L's, it's like, Oh my
All
God.
right.
I can't.
Yeah.
All right, that's a pass. That's a pass. All right. So I think
Turn the page.
yeah, turn that page, please.
Turn the page.
I think when you look at him, he's a young quarterback. So we see a lot of young quarterbacks are going to go out there and they're going to try to, do their thing. He's going to force things at times. He's going to go out there and try to make the dynamic play when he doesn't have to, instead of taking a routine play. And that's things we saw last year. A lot of times, he could have taken a check down, but he wants to force the ball downfield and, the result isn't there. But that's just the growing pains of a young quarterback. I think, having the staff that he has in place, an offensive-minded head coach that can help continue to develop a young quarterback like Ben Johnson. I think, like I said, the level of accountability in terms of his quarterback play is going to be at an all-time high. So, yes, there's going to be times where he's going to go out there. He's going to do too much because he's young. He's a playmaker. That's what he's done his whole career. But I think we're going to see more of him playing within the system, playing on time, playing in rhythm, playing on schedule, actually, taking what the defense gives him, being coached the right way. But there will be times where we see him, he's going to roll out when he doesn't have to. And because he has that ability, and he's going to make a throw-off platform, and he's going to make a wild play, and he's going to make a bonehead play. That's just part of the growing pains of a young quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like that you said that, J-Mac. I think one of his learning curves is learning that you can't play this game in the NFL like you played it in college. It's different. You have to respect what they're giving you. You have to take what that defense is giving you, even if it's a check down. Check downs move the ball, move the chains, will help move the chains. And then when that opening happens, take it. I'd like to see him be more accurate down the throw, shoot more consistently. And I think that by running the ball, or at least committing to running the ball, those big wider windows will open up for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it well, Briggs. Like with him, I think it's like you talk about taking the layup, taking the check down. The check down equals first downs equals touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So as a young quarterback, as a gunslinger, yes, we want to throw the ball deep to Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, the weapons that you have. Yeah, like as a young quarterback, I'd want to throw the ball up too if I had those type of weapons on the outside. But at the same time, being able to, like you said, Briggs, play within the system, play within the scheme, take those layups, extend drives. I think it's going to be real important. And I know he has that in him. Caleb's shown the ability to be able to play within the pocket. He has good awareness in the pocket, but he also has the ability that we've seen to be able to play off schedule, right? To extend plays because of his athleticism and his elite arm strength. And that's why he was the number one overall pick, because he has those fundamentals. He has a skill set that not a lot of quarterbacks have, which made him a first round draft pick.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm curious from what you've seen so far, and I know it's hard because it's only OTAs minicamp. You don't have pads on, but I'm very excited for Ozzy Trapillo. And maybe I'm not being fair to Braxton Jones. I know he's coming back from an injury, and he's done really well for being a 5th round pick and what he's done here the last few years and being serviceable. But I think that's the top battle at training camp. So I'm just curious your perspective on how that's going to play out, and if there's any other battles at training camp that we should be keeping an eye on early on when we get to Hallis Hall.
Yeah, I think that left tackle spot, you look at, I think, Karana Magaji, you look at Ozzy Trapillo, you look at Braxton Jones coming back off an injury. I know a lot of people are so enamored with OTAs and minicamp. Ozzy Trapillo looks good. Like, he's punching mosquitoes in the air. He's not even, there's no defense. He's passing on air, punching mosquitoes.
Everybody looks good in shells.
You better look good in shorts. If you're in the NFL, you better look good. So, I'm interested to see, especially in training camp, I think you really got to pay attention to, the periods in practice that actually promote physicality, the one-on-ones, team period, you get a glimpse, yes, because, making sure he's going the right direction, making sure he's picking up the right defender in pass protection, but it's still going to be a controlled rush in a team setting. So what I'm really looking forward to is the joint practices, right? Because we don't know how long these guys are going to play in preseason. That's why these teams have joint practices. And a lot of these coaches put a lot of emphasis on the joint practices because the starters or guys that are competing for starting positions are going to be really evaluated during these joint practices. So when the Dolphins come to town, the Bills come to town. I'm excited to see those type of practices, because now I'm actually seeing my young left tackle who's competing for a starting job at one of the most important positions on offensive line besides center, obviously. I'm interested to see how he competes with a true NFL rush. Like, there's no disrespect, but the NFL isn't Boston College. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be interesting to see how he does when he gets an opportunity to go against high-level competition. And he'll get that with the Bears as well, because we have some great defensive linemen. But at the same time, it's still controlled. You know what I mean? You're not trying to – you're going to go physical and fast, but you're not trying to hurt each other, because we need each other for the season.
Yeah.
And Braggs, listen, we got to remove our feelings from this now. We do want Ozzy Trapilo to come in and be ahead of the game as far as competing with Braxton. And it's not about whether we want Braxton to succeed or not. We've seen him perform. We need somebody to come in and outperform that performance. That's what we need right now on that top five. And it's not show friends, it's show business. It's not it's we want the best five, and we've seen what Braxton has done, and he has exceeded what his expectation. But we need somebody to exceed that.
Right.
Yep. No, yeah, I mean, you're right. And he's a second-round pick. And when you're a second-round pick, you have certain expectations when you come into the league. So, Jason, I guess your advice to me is, in one-on-ones, stop constantly watching the wide receivers and DBs and actually pay attention to the trenches in one-on-one.
This is my thing. Yeah, I mean, I just – it's funny, like, being on this side of things for a long time and having the opportunity to cover the Bears is definitely a blessing. Like Greg, you do a great job. A lot of guys do a great job covering the Bears, and it's a job. Like, guys, it's tough. Like, these reporters and guys, they're watching film like we did when we were players. They're traveling with the team. It's a grind. They're going through a season as well. But for me, it's like certain things. I'm not going to overhype. I'm not going to overemphasize. Like, when the running back breaks free in training camp, they're like, "Oh, it's a 60-yard run." I'm like, "No, he got tackled. It's a TFL because that three technique that beat the double team right there. It's a TFL, but they're not going to tackle him in training camp." You know what I'm saying? So,
we heard that at minicamp. The report of Courtney Cronin asked the question in a 7-on-7 where he hit DJ Moore down the left sideline, but Ben came up and said something to him, and it was like, well, no, he should have gotten the ball out quicker on the flat.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Like,
deceiving.
Yeah, it's like, Caleb looked great. He went 10 for 10 and 7-on-7. And, I see the video post. I'm like, dog, like, that's routes on air. That's not even 7-on-7. Like, he better go 10 for 10 on routes on air. There's no defense out there. Like,
there's nobody out there.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think, when you look at, it's going to be tough, even with Caleb, to get a true evaluation of how he's progressing throughout training camp, because of the fact that everything is scaled, or everything's going to be not necessarily dialed down, but it's going to be controlled, right? Those defensive linemen, they're going to get a pass rush, but when they get close to the quarterback, they're not going to be able to hit them.
Yeah, they're going to stop.
It's a standard. Like, it's a certain thing.
How many times did you guys go live during a training camp at Bourbonnais?
We are in a different era too.
Yeah. We have some live. You're
gonna go to first 5 days, first 5 practices for sure. We're home.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that a big thing missing? Like, absolutely. I understand the protection of the players, but isn't it kind of doing the opposite effect? You're not really like you. Everybody's so worried about keeping your roster intact for week 1, but it seems like then you guys aren't conditioned for week 1 when it gets there.
Well, if you remember, I mean, that was one of Dan Campbell's deals, and when you see those some of that film, he said, listen, he's like, I know you guys get tired of it. I know we're hitting every day. He said, but this is part of the business. You have to do this. He's one of those coaches. So let's see. I'm interested to see how Ben runs his, because, Dan was adamant about those guys hitting often, and he's an offensive guy. Dan Campbell's an offensive guy too.
Yeah,
that's interesting. And these offensive guys are changing the game.
Yeah, and for us, we did, like Briggs is saying, we had a lot. Like, Lovie did a great job of creating things. I felt like, we do live goal line, live short yardage. Ones versus ones for 4 plays, 2s versus 2s for 4 plays, and You know, like as an offense and Briggs and Zoom, you know, we had a chance to go against the best defense every single day in practice. So it was good for us, especially me as a fullback. I'm going against the best linebackers in the league. So, you know, it's going to be for me, I'm going to get my hardest look at practice. You know what I mean? And then get to the game, it's going to be easier because I'm going against, you know, 2 perennial Pro Bowlers that are the 2 best linebackers at their position in the game. And we made each other better. And it was fun because it created competition. But at the same time, we're brothers and iron sharpens iron. And we were helping each other get ready for the season. So, you know, having that type of practice environment, having those type of players on your roster that's going to make each other better on a daily basis. Like, I'm getting the best look that I'm going to see all year early in training camp. So, you know, I felt like that really helped us a lot, especially offensively. That helped us a lot. Now, I'm not saying we gave them the best offensive look because we weren't like the top.
Well,
I was waiting for that.
That's listen, now the other thing that we didn't talk, the other part we didn't talk about too, you know, was that thumbs up, thumbs down. You know, there's been many times where, you know, it was listen, it's day one, hey, strap your shit up. You know, there were other days where they were like, hey, week or a week. And you know, it was, okay, all right. So we're fitting today.
Look at Briggs. Hey, it's day 5. Motherfucker, motherfucker.
Hey, J-Mac, I wanted to ask you.
J-Mac,
I wanted to ask you a quick thing. I mean, we talked about the trenches, obviously, but you know, and if you look at the draft, obviously we got Colston Loveland. You know, we got Burden also, which I really, really like. And I think that, you know, there's going to be a lot of dynamic players that are going to be around Caleb. How do we distribute the ball to all of these dynamic players? I think that might be a big question mark moving forward as well, because you have a lot of ball dominant guys that are out there and a lot of guys that actually can make a lot of plays downfield. And Ben Johnson, I mean, he's going to be a little mastermind to try to, you know, be creative and get them the ball in creative ways. But there's a lot of guys with a lot of talent, you know what I'm saying? Especially when we add those 2, Burden and Loveland. So how do you bring it all together?
Well, I think you have a guy who's he's done that the past few years at a high level in Detroit. I mean, an offense that he conducted and orchestrated in Detroit that averaged 33 points a game. That
sounds great.
That had a ton of weapons. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams. You look at the running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, it was crazy. Sam LaPorta, like, oh my goodness, like
all over the place.
And he did a great job. But I think the main thing is, I think it is yes, understanding that you have a lot of weapons and understanding how you want to utilize those weapons and in certain situations of how to, you know, create mismatches to get guys opportunity to make plays. But I think the one thing that this staff's going to have to do is, you know, they're going to, especially with young guys, you're going to have to manage emotions and feelings. You know, if
there you go.
You know, if DJ Moore doesn't get his 5 targets, you know, what's going to happen? You know, Rome Odunze is an even kill guy. I haven't seen Rome complain at all. I don't think Rome's going to be a guy that's going to complain if he doesn't get his 5 targets or 4 targets. Yes, he's a playmaker, wants to make plays, but I think Rome's just his personality is, hey, it could be my week, it could be Cole's week.
Team player.
DJ's, he's a team player. And Luther Burden, I don't know much about Luther. I haven't been around him. He hasn't been at practice, so I'm not sure about him. But I know he's a dynamic playmaker, especially with the ball in his hand. And that's why he was drafted, you know, so high. And that's why the Bears brought him in to be able to create after he, you know, with the ball in his hand. So I don't know what his personality type is. I don't know what Colston Loveland's personality type is. I know Cole's a team player. I'm going to do whatever it takes. But having all of these weapons, I'm not worried about Ben Johnson finding ways to scheme guys open. That's going to happen. That's what he does well. I just think it's, you know, you guys have to have a firm understanding of, hey, depending on the defense we're facing and the way they're playing us, it could be DJ's week 1 week. It could be Rome's week. It could be Colston's week. It could be Cole's week. Hell, it could be Luther and Rome's week. We don't know. But the good thing is to have options, a lot of weapons. And you got a weapon at quarterback too. So I think it's going to be real exciting to see this offense, you know, play at a high level and under the tutelage of a Ben Johnson, you know, led by Caleb in the second year.
Well, we know that he likes to run the ball also. Do you think that the Bears need a fullback?
Hey, man, you know how I feel about that. Like, hey, like I just think, you know, when you look at the run game, and there's times where, and Briggs knows, it doesn't matter we know the defense knows we're going to run the ball. They know where we're going to run it. And it just gives you an opportunity to create an attitude play, right? Yeah. We're going to come off the ball. You know where we're running. Can you stop us? You know what I mean? And it's just, having that fullback provides that level of physicality. It allows your offense to be able to set a tone. And, I'm not a fan of, let's just move the tight end back there. We see what the tight ends do when they get moved back there. Like, wait.
The problem,
terrible.
The problem with that is they tried that. The NFL's tried that before. It didn't work. Yeah. Right. So they're trying it again, but they're doing it with players like Loveland. There are little bit players like him who can come down and hit and drive guys out like a fullback. So if you watch some of his plays at Michigan, this guy not just plays tight end, but he can come down at fullback and come down and lay some linebackers out. Yeah. So
or that play action pass too.
And the play action pass. Unfortunately for the traditional fullback, if you got a tight end that can do both, that's 2 for 1.
Yeah, and I'm talking about bringing back the fullback, and I don't even have one on my offense. Hey, I'm trying to help my young guys that play fullback out. Hey, but you're right though, Briggs. When you have when you can go 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends, and there's so many things offensively, right, that you can do. Like the creativity is at an all-time high because now I have that move tight end who is like my fullback. But he can also stretch the field because he has the ability of a tight end and a fullback all combined in one. Like it just creates so much opportunity and puts so much stress on the defense. And I think that's why when you look at Colson Loveland, you look at his ability, you look at him being able to do a lot of things like Briggs said, him being able to block in the run game. But we know he's also really effective in the passing game, being able to stretch the defense down the middle of the field. Like that's why the Bears, wanted him, and that's why they drafted him so high. So, I know Ben Johnson and that offensive staff have been, drawing up all kind of things for Colson Loveland and Cole Kmet, in 12 personnel. So I expect to see a lot of 12 personnel this year.
Yeah, absolutely, and excited to see it. I know that Ben Johnson last year with the Lions ran 32% of his plays in 12 personnel, which was third most in the NFL, and that is going to be the only mathematical statistic I give our fans all season long because math is not my strong suit. But I am looking forward to it, and while we hit the overtime here on CHGO Bears After Dark, make sure you hit the like button for Jason McKie, who's staying way over what I told him last night of what he would do, but I figured you guys would be.
He's a man of the people.
We certainly appreciate your time. That's right. And, when you make sure you become a diehard at allchgo.com/diehard, we've got some great deals out there right now. And you can have discounts on all our different merchandise and exclusive written content that'll be coming out here all season long and at training camp. And then, of course, we're going to be going to Las Vegas week 4. You might even run into these 3 there. You just never know on the streets, losing some money potentially. We'll see. The final thing before we let you go that I wanted to ask you, you're talking about, that the fullback and what you did, blocking for Thomas Jones and under Lovie Smith. And for me, the glory days of me as a fan and kind of what made all of us, at least my age and our generation, the Bears fans we are today. And I'll always remember the NFC Championship where you guys start your first drive, and it felt like you ran the same play the first 8 plays to run into the end zone for the touchdown. And so that's the kind of mentality I hope this Bears team gets back to. But I did want to ask you, and all 3 of you guys can chime in on this, but what is your biggest what if of the Lovie Smith era for you guys? Like, I know that's a hard one for you guys because I'm sure it hurts you guys a lot more than it does us fans that you guys were never able to win the Super Bowl. I see your locker room. You got the locker room platelet above you from Super Bowl, XLI, and that's awesome. So I'm just curious what you feel like is the one thing that holds up for you, whether it's that game, that season, or even just in the tenure you guys were with Lovie Smith. What was the biggest what if for you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my biggest what if is, what if we won the Super Bowl? Not just that, but what if we had Mike Brown? What if we had Tommy Harris that game? You know what I'm saying? What if we continue to run the football that game? I think, you know, that's just not a name. That's not a nameplate up there. What'd you say?
Say that one more time.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's not going to be just a nameplate. That's going to be a nameplate that we'd be on this show with our rings right now.
Right.
You know, we had that type of talent. We had those type of guys in the locker room. Our defense obviously was outstanding that year. I mean, our defense played. I mean, you saw what our defense did the whole year. It was unbelievable. And you know, for me, it hurts. I mean, it's a day. There's something every day that reminds you of that what if, and you know, having the group of guys that we had in that locker room that were, you know, great people that were really good at football. And you see, that's why, you know, all of us are still close to this day, because we were truly like brothers. We were like family for real. You know, a lot of people throw that around, you know, in terms of when they're talking about a team. But, you know, I feel like our guys exhibited that on a daily basis. And even now, you see how close everybody is. And to not be able to finish, not being able to finish and really, you know, uphold that Lombardi trophy, it hurts daily. So, you know, for me, it's the what if. You know, I wanted my teammates to have that opportunity. I wanted my teammates to have that ring, but you only control what you can control. And that's why I say, you know, what if we had those guys who were missing in the lineup, you know, that particular game.
All right. I mean, that was tough, but, you know, getting back to this season, obviously the Bears have an incredible schedule ahead of them. They always obviously have challenges because of all the new moving parts that are going on. You know what the schedule looks like. What are your predictions for the Bears season? I mean, it's tough. We haven't really seen much of this brand new team, but we know that they've added all these additions to the coaching staff, to the players. And then you've looked at the schedule, and you look at the schedule, boy, the schedule is tough. It's nothing easy about it. And then you look at this division also, which the Vikings are going to be much better. Detroit is going to be Detroit, and Green Bay is going to be Green Bay. You know what I'm saying? This is a black and blue division. Like, just in all totality, like, what are your predictions for the season?
Yeah, I've obviously looked at the schedule a bunch, but I haven't really like put together a win-loss total. I think this, like you said, the schedule's challenging. It's going to be some exciting games, you know, with them playing in Philly.
We're starting off on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, Monday Night Football. Then you got
McCarthy.
Yeah, JJ McCarthy in the building, another, you know, local high school product.
Local high school guy, yeah.
Before he went to IMG. Then you get Detroit. Then you got the Cowboys.
Yeah.
You go to Philly. I think that's Black Friday. You go to Philly. I think
you got Dallas, Bengals, and then you got, you know, the Ravens. You got the Bengals.
Yes, that's gonna be a tough stretch. Yeah, tough stretch. I think you know, I think it's gonna be exciting. Obviously, it's a tough schedule, tough challenging schedule for the Bears. I don't really have a win-loss total right now, but it's gonna really test this coaching staff and these players, and not just the starters, but you better develop adequate backups as well, because they're essentially starters as well. So depth is going to be key. You know, is going to be of the utmost importance to make sure that guys are prepared to fill in when needed and not take a step back.
Yeah, it's going to be important for them to get off to a fast start. I remember Lovie always talking about the quarters of the season. Now it's 17 games, so it's not exactly quarters, but you know, you do have those first 4 games and then a bye week. So it'd be nice to get off to a hot start. And then I do think one of their interesting tests to start the year after the bye week on Monday Night Football against the Washington Commanders to kind of exercise the demons of last year. I'm sure they're only going to see that Hail Mary play 700 times that week. Already seen
More
it
demons. More demons.
Yeah. So hopefully they can, you know, answer those calls here this upcoming season. So it's going to be exciting. I want to let Jason go because we got a few more things to take care of before we wrap the show, and it's been a little longer. And so I really appreciate you taking all this time, Jason, with us. It was a lot of fun to hear you guys, you know, kind of break it all down. So, you know, we're looking forward to your coverage on ESPN 1000 all season long. Make sure you keep those guys in check for me. We appreciate all your time. Is there anything else that you want to keep us updated on what you're going to be up to, or anything you need to plug? Just let me know on the way out.
Nah, man. Thanks for having me on. Always a good time with my brothers, man. Love y'all boys, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Jay.
Right,
we will be checking in with you during the season.
Yeah, we'll have to try to bring you on at some point. here maybe later in the year, and I'll have you get some dirt, because I didn't get any stories of dirt on these guys during their playing days. I've heard it's,
Why do you want
There is
the
no
dirt?
dirt. There is no
There's
dirt.
no dirt.
There's no dirt.
We
And if
keep
there was,
going.
you never get it from me. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've heard of some card games on the plane rides back.
We
So.
didn't hear that.
Don't know about
Yeah, we
that.
don't
Never
do
saw
that.
that at all. Never.
Right?
That was the Bulls.
Yeah, I never.
Yeah. You're listening
Never.
to
We
many
never.
rumors,
We've
man.
never played cards on an airplane. Sorry.
Yeah, that
No,
was the
we
Cubs.
don't do that.
No.
All right. Well, take it easy, J-Mac, and thank you for all your time.
All right, fellas. Thank you.
Hey, J Mac.
All right,
That is Jason McKie, fullback of the Chicago Bears and with ESPN 1000 as their sideline reporter, doing a lot of podcasting work over there with Pat the designer as well. So we appreciate his time.
Fantastic job over there.
Yeah, for sure. He's
fantastic job.
great. He's a great dude too, and he's killing it at the high school level, coaching them up over there too as well. So let's get into it real quick and wrap this baby up. Appreciate you guys, kind of running the show here today. I did my best to keep my big mouth out of it as best I could. And then, hey, we made it, boys. We've done a lot of off-season shows, and this is kind of the dog days of summer of football coverage and pulling for content. So I think we finished strong here with Jason McKie. But the next time we, have a show here in a couple weeks, training camp will be underway. Foles and Ben Johnson all spoke to the media, and away we go for the rest of the year. And we can all kiss our families goodbye for the next 7 months. So, but without further ado, let's have our award-winning segment to finish the program. And that is with our friends at Circa Sports and Da Bets. Bets. That's right. We appreciate Circa Sports, Illinois. Make sure you are hitting up Circa Sports and downloading their app and everything they bring to the table, because they are the top premier of download of betting in Illinois. So download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so the final division that we haven't talked about here this year is the AFC South. I picked them last because they're easily the most boring division in football. We got the Colts at plus 302. The Jags are at plus 285. The Texans are the favorites at plus 102 with CJ Stroud. And then the Titans at plus 1,300. So I'm asking you guys, where do you guys stand on this division and how it could play out?
Throw this division away. Just throw it away. I mean, obviously, I like the Texans and what they bring to the table. The past 2 years, they've been flying high, and they've been really pushing the boundaries of that organization. They have a lot of great players. They've overcome adversity, and they found ways to win also. And I think they're a really young team as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that they're going to be a tough, a very tough out. Again, it's going to be up to CJ Stroud to come in and dominate the way that he's done before. Like last year, he might have taken a little bit of a dip, but still, they were in the playoffs, and they still had
they didn't protect him as well last year, Zoom. They didn't protect him as well last year. They didn't protect him as well last year, and his top targets kept getting hurt.
Yeah. Yep. And then you got the Jacksonville Jaguars, bringing in, Travis Hunter, premium player, Trevor Lawrence looking for a bounce back, but they've got, the young coaching staff, the young GM, and they've got some changes there. I think there's somewhat
culture issues.
Culture issues.
They got some culture issues in Jacksonville. I think it was one of those deals where you had a few good years, especially when when you had that great defense they had out there, and they went to the AFC Championship. But it really, after that, they went back to some of those the way it started trending back down to that bad culture they have in Jacksonville, and it's hard to get out of that stuff.
Yeah, offensively, they've also struggled as well. I mean, they hang their hat on their defense, obviously, but offensively, they just have to get it together.
Yeah, yeah, and then it'll be interesting to see how Cam Ward adjusts to the NFL with the Titans as the heavy underdogs over there. So that's enough AFC South talk for the day and maybe for the rest of our lives. And we appreciate their contribution to our offseason of breaking down each division winner. So make sure you're hitting up circasports.com for all of your gambling needs. So I think that wraps things up here for today. Appreciate your guys' hard work all off season. We're going to have some awesome announcements here coming up in the next few weeks, including with our program, with what we do here as we kick off the NFL season, because the NFL season starts at training camp. And so we're excited for all of that. So once again, please hit that like button on your way out, subscribe to the channel. And thank you, Lance and Jerry, for all your hard work here this summer and everything we've been doing from draft to minicamp to OTAs and now here in the dark time of the football offseason. So enjoy the rest of your summer, gentlemen. You get 2 weeks, and then your summer is over.
It's on, baby. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think it's 11 days till rookies, or 10 days when this is aired, because we recorded it a little earlier, till rookies report to training camp. And, we've got a preseason game July 31st. So before you know it, it's all going to be here. And high school football is going to be here for you guys before you know it as well. So, yeah, for sure. So, all right. Well, that wraps things up. For Jerry Azumah and Lance Briggs, I'm Greg Braggs Jr., and this is CHGO Bears After Dark. So, as we always like to say, keep your head up and always bear down.
Bear down.
We all silly like the mayor.